Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, and Blayne Gilmer of Southeastern 14 here to react to the coaches poll, which has just come out a few minutes ago. Not a ton of surprises for me, but Blayne, I'll start with you. What pops here?
I didn't expect to see Alabama get that high necessarily if you're just in the weeds of how everybody's talking about the quarterback battle and stuff like that. They end up at 3. Of course, Georgia's at 1. But when it comes down to it, I thought that might knock Alabama down just a little bit. Didn't necessarily even know that if LSU would make the top 5, but you have 3 teams in the top 5. Alabama all the way at number 3. Blake, I guess people are pretty confident in that Alabama defense and also confident about what's around those quarterbacks over there this year.
Yeah, just spoiler alert. Chris and I just did the Alabama MTSU preview, and we're like, well, we don't know what to say about Alabama's quarterback situation because we don't know who it's going to be. So we'll obviously update that as we get closer. But yeah, I mean, I think again the coaches poll is always interesting. I know as Chris will probably make the joke. Sometimes I think it's who's actually voting in those polls on the coaching staff may not be who you think it is. But I mean, Alabama's Alabama, and I think they got 4 first place votes and. Look, I mean, like you said, Blayne, it's the defense is something where it's just really never in doubt. And so I can understand that. I'm glad LSU was in the top 5. I know it's kind of wild to think maybe I felt like they were not going to probably get that respect, even as the reigning SEC West champion. I've seen some people saying, well, LSU just 1 year, they're overrated. As we all know, we don't agree with that. And I think so. I'm glad to see LSU in the top 5, even though polls are what they are. They don't mean a whole lot. But Tennessee at 10 too. I think you look at Tennessee and, if you want to talk about just having the momentum from a season ago, I mean, this is pretty good indicator that, if you think Tennessee's kind of about to drop off, it doesn't seem like it just from kind of where the perception is. And when you really look at them, obviously we've talked about Joe Milton and what he looks like on offense for a 12 game plus season. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee has certainly the tools to be a team. So 4 SEC teams in the top 10. It's usually, guys, just a matter of rotating who that's going to be each year, but obviously not surprised in terms of looking at the top 10. So,
well, guys, I think there's a lot of groupthink going on here. I track a preseason thing. I look at Athlon's, Lindy's, Phil Steele, SP Plus, ESPN, FPI, just see where people are ranking people. And guess what? There's not a whole lot of difference between what the computers and the magazines put out and what the coaches put out. The highest ranked team in that little composite I've got to be left out was Iowa, which was the first team receiving votes. So essentially number 26. Tulane at 23 was not in that computer and magazine composite I had. I think Tulane was 37. It's 23 in the poll. Incidentally, Tulane and Ole Miss matched up at 22 and 23 in the poll. Those teams will play each other early on in New Orleans. I have a feeling the point spread won't be as close as these teams are in the poll. And that happens a lot at like a mid-major team that had a good year the year before that won double-digit games is going to get ranked high with a lot of guys coming back. But as far as the SEC, I'm not shocked about Bama at 3. I'm not shocked about LSU at 5. I'll tell you the one that I was kind of curious how the pollsters would go, guys. Texas A&M at 25. Was that a little lower than you guys anticipated?
Well, we talked about how much talent that Texas A&M team had. That's all that we kept coming up with was, man, this team's got experience. They've got a lot of people back. They've got talent. Now they've added in Bobby Petrino to the mix, who, as he pointed out in his press conference yesterday, his job is to keep the boss happy. So he's ended all that talk about Jimbo Fisher. He's just going to do what he's supposed to do and be over there and help that offense. But a lot of experience. I did expect that, hey, this is kind of backs against the wall, make or break year for Jimbo, and they have all that talent there on both the offensive and defensive side. I thought you'd see them ranked a little bit higher, but maybe the coaches are a little bit skeptical, Blake, based off the product that's been on the field the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think you're at Texas A&M. You'd have loved be left outside of the top 25 given how it went last year. Yeah, I mean, like we said, based on talent, they're one of the 25 most talented teams in the country. I don't think there's any question about that. So to see them kind of here, yeah, I would agree. I may have expected them to be a little bit higher, but like you said, Blayne, it's probably a lot of prove it at this point with that team. I think just based on what happened last season. So yeah, I can certainly understand that one. I think as always, the others receiving votes category, as Chris kind of brought up Iowa a little bit, and you've got South Carolina there with 89, Florida with 63. Kentucky 34, Arkansas with 20, Auburn 18, Mississippi State 13, Missouri 11, And yeah, that's it for the SEC. Pretty much everyone else, right, except for Vanderbilt and maybe missing someone else. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what it is, right? I mean that you talk about just how close a couple of the other teams were in terms of getting votes. We'll see. I mean, Blayne, I guess we could kind of bring up the North Carolina, South Carolina game, which you guys have already previewed, and certainly look at that. Carolina's at 20, North Carolina, that is, South Carolina just outside of it. And again, that's why this should be such an interesting matchup. I know we all have our differing opinions on Florida, and for them getting, a lot of votes and being pretty close to making the top 25 to start the season. So always interesting to see kind of what order those teams are in that other receiving votes category.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a prediction. I think that might be the closest Florida gets all year to being in the poll. That's my prediction.
I'm not surprised by your prediction there. So
well, that stood out to me. Florida's a polarizing team. The more I listen, I hear some people that have been higher on the Gators than I have been, and a lot of talk of Billy Napier year two. A lot of times that's where I think he's made the jump with past teams. I'll kind of be agnostic on that for the sake of this video. But I'm looking, did everybody get at least a vote other than Vanderbilt in the league? Because Missouri got votes. Missouri was picked 6th in the East.
Yeah, everybody
Mississippi
but Vanderbilt.
State, everybody but Vanderbilt got votes. And I think Missouri got 11, so that's the lowest.
Which let's not forget, Vanderbilt got votes to win the SEC.
That's going to say they got 5 votes to win
that's
the
all
SEC.
They need.
It was not us.
25. No, so
it was not us.
They're fine without the top 25. They're going to be the SEC champion. We're not making fun of Vanderbilt. We're just pointing out the facts, reality. They got votes. So
that South Carolina team. That South Carolina team, Chris, is just so polarizing to me, even more so than Florida, because you've had the Spurs Up show on here, guest with us, and things of that nature, and then the reaction to our Carolina showdown video, North Carolina versus South Carolina. A lot of people are dogging us for not picking South Carolina, but see the coaches agree. North Carolina, the stronger team going into the year, at least by the poll here in the top 25. South Carolina is not. So, hey, South Carolina, they have a opportunity early on to prove people wrong, including me and Chris.
Well, Blayne, you beat me to my next topic. The sound you hear in the background is the South Carolina disrespect machine getting cranked up. Yep. I think Shane Beamer's had that going for a while. We caught flack for picking, I think it's our lowest rated video ever, because we dared pick North Carolina ahead of South Carolina, and we got downvoted by a lot of Gamecock Nation. Hey, look, like I said, no hard feelings. Like the team, just looking at it hat for hat, I like Carolina better because of Drake May, but that is not how that message got heard. But and again, I like, why was that a surprise? Carolina is the Vegas favorite. It's not like we are, taking a team that was a 10-point favorite and picking it to lose. But that seems to be MO for the offseason of Columbia, is take everything that seems disrespectful and go with it. And Blake, I have a feeling this poll is going to be posted on the locker room bulletin board, if they even have those anymore, somewhere in Columbia.
Should I just pick South Carolina right now to win the game, and that way we just
get
through all this mess?
Right.
Way, start get some. No, I mean it. Look, it's these polls. If you've watched any videos we've ever done, my tune on polls has never changed. They are polls for the sake of polls. They obviously mean something towards the end of the season. Preseason polls to me mean absolutely zilch in terms of how I maybe form my own opinion on teams, right? Like it's just other people's opinions and it forms a poll. Like that's it. And so, yes, it matters in terms of where you start, because if you start higher, you certainly have a chance to get closer to that point if you take care of your business. And so, I don't ever overreact to polls very much, because they are what they are. They're someone's opinion on where a team should be or where they think they're going to be. But we're all just playing a guessing game here. But I think it's pretty clear that the number one team in this poll, Georgia, deserves to be there as the defending 2-time national champion. And, as we talked about before, have a really good shot if you just look at what they have coming this season to be there at the end of the season yet again. So,
Chris, Blake, to your point, or go ahead, Blayne.
I was going to talk about Kentucky a little bit. That's the team that you said they got 34 votes, not as many as South Carolina or Florida, but I'm telling you, I think that team is going to be the one that you're going to see make the biggest jump after about the first 4 games of the year in this coaches poll, because I think they've got a pretty, an easier schedule a little bit early on. I think they're a better team than Florida, with Florida coming to to Lexington, and I think they'll have a fast start to the year. And with Liam Cohen and Devin Leary and those receivers, Ray Davis coming in from Vanderbilt, I think that Kentucky team's being overlooked a little bit.
Yeah, if Kentucky is not ranked coming into our hometown, Blake and I, of Nashville for week 4, I think we'll be surprised. Kentucky will be 3-0. If Kentucky's not 3-0, Kentucky will have some big problems, and that'll be its own video at that point. But I was going to point out, Blake, you talked about the irrelevance of polls, guys. I believe TCU was unranked this time a year ago. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, TCU came out of nowhere. So what you're telling me is Colorado is going to win the national championship. That's what you're saying, huh?
Yes, that is exactly what I said.
You play to win the game. You have to win the games. No matter where you're at in the poll, you got to win the games. When you start doing that, the poll will take care of itself. I promise. Yes,
it's funny how that happens. Okay, final thoughts on the polls, guys. Again, my big takeaway, no big surprises here. Maybe thought Ohio State would be 2 instead of Michigan, but I'm not a Big Ten expert, so that may be the correct take. Anything else of note here that we didn't get into?
I just wonder how heavily with coaches these quarterback situations were put in, because it's like some teams they didn't matter, some teams they did. Georgia and Alabama both have questions at quarterback. Of course, Tennessee's replacing Hendon Hooker with Joe Milton, so people must feel confident on that. And then Jaden Daniels at LSU, they've got basically everybody on the whole team coming back, including him. So I'm just fascinated how much or how little that didn't play a role in it. And then KJ Jefferson, of course, comes back at Arkansas, and they didn't even sniff the top 25. So that's kind of my take on it, Blake.
Well, I think, guys, we got the number wrong, actually, because if you really look at it, the SEC didn't just have 4 teams in the top 10. They had 6 when you factor in future SEC members, Florida State and Clemson. So that's a perfect segue to mention that we have been talking about conference realignment for hours upon hours, I feel like, the past several days. So you can check all that stuff out on the channel. Lots of videos up on that.
My final thought here, speaking of disrespect machines, I think I hear one getting cranked up in Knoxville. The ball's at 10, 1 spot behind Clemson, which Tennessee, of course, throttled in the Orange Bowl. So people will have fun with that. Look, it's year to year. It's different. The polls, I pay almost no attention to polls, but we're doing this because people care. So we do a video. We give our thoughts. We hope you enjoyed those. If you like it, subscribe to our channel. Hit the like button. That helps our analytics. For Blayne Gilmer and Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching, and we will see you again soon.